Hi, and welcome back to another week of the What in the World podcast, a podcast done by Hungry for Life to do with all things global missions. And today we have a special guest, Ana Velazquez. Did I say that right, Ana? I didn't even
Yeah,
ask
that's
before.
totally perfect. Yeah,
Okay. Ana joins us via Zoom from Vancouver, right?
yeah.
And we know Ana because she recently went on a trip to Cambodia with 10th Church through Hungry for Life. And do you want to explain a little bit about what you do at 10th and a little bit about what you do outside of 10th?
Yeah. Well, with 10th, as I work as part of the global missions, refugees ministry, also social enterprise. So we have been working with partners, international partners, and that's Cambodia, one of the countries. We also work with Mexico. So on a recent trip in November, yeah, it was there where I got connected through Hunger for Life, which is it's just such a blessing to be connected, and the whole team just came together. We went and we visited partners who are there already working in the missions of God of expanding God's kingdom. So our vision is just to go in what God is already doing in there and just jumping in and say, okay, what is that you guys need, or what is it that we can help you with to enlarge, to grow the vision. So that's part of what we do. We work a lot with discipleship programs. We work a lot with women who are being rescued from sex trafficking, and we work a lot with social enterprises. So that's what we do.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pause you there for a sec and introduce our topic, which is integrating your faith, your work, and your social enterprise, aka business as a mission or business as a calling. We've talked a little bit about this before on our podcast. We've had a couple other guests who are business owners who are also very passionate about this topic of using your business to glorify God's kingdom. And so we love this topic here at Hungry for Life, and I know you are very passionate about this topic too. So what else do you do outside of 10th that has to do with this?
Okay, so I do work also for Adult and Teen Challenge. It's also a Christian ministry where women are overcoming addiction. So as part of the program, we do work therapy program, and we disciple them during hours from 8 to 5. Is a year round curriculum and program. And we also initiated something a year ago, which is like the social enterprise, which is so beautiful. So as part of the ministry, they did have the discipleship program, but they didn't have in place a social enterprise. And because I came in a period where they needed this, which is so timely, how God does things, and we started the work therapy program. So I'm work therapy coordinator / social enterprise, building branding and marketing. And so as what we do is like, as the women work there, we produce, we design, they produce, and then we market the products. And right now we're in the midst of developing the website. And last year we went to 35 markets here locally in Vancouver, tried and made a pilot plan of products that were sellable. So we're into the next stage of just, working in wholesales now. So that's part of the social enterprise of integrating the mission, but also knowing that God works and he spiritually forms us during the workplace environment. So this is what we teach the women. While you create, you're honoring Jesus because you're using your hands, you're using your mind, you're using your heart. And so teaching them that while they work, God is present. So that is part of the workplace discipleship program or spiritual formation that we do. And also on the other side, what I do is like I have my own company. It's called Quero, Kuero, which is I'm a designer by trade, and that's one of my passions. I do product development, but also my heart is working with women in the margins, right? And so part of it is uplifting the women, teaching them, showing them that they have potential from the inside out, and once God comes into your heart, everything is transformed and changed. And you own God's identity in you. So part of it is like developing products, designing, and taking it to the markets as well, but also teaching women what ideas do you have in mind what do you want? And so mentoring them towards developing their own businesses. So I said two things. Is one is developing women in business and also knowing that it's social enterprise giving back to community. And the other one is like the development and the design where we can come into that area and say, I'm passionate about fashion. So how can we as entrepreneurs go into that be redemptive the way God is and try and come into the fashion arena scenario and say, what is broken there? How can we as entrepreneurs fix them? Yeah, I truly believe this part of also who how God wired us in the inside. I don't know if I kind of have felt that before, Jessica, but for me, it's like I'm from Latin America. I was born in Canada, but I was raised in Latin America in Nicaragua, where I was exposed when I was living, like growing up. We just recently moved here 4 years ago, so I practically grew all my life in Latin America, and so seeing poverty day by day by day, but also knowing that through my business, I was in a privileged position, and I couldn't, as a Christian and as a Christ follower, as an image bearer, and the word says, "Love your neighbor." So how am I exemplifying that through that image bearer? And I go like, I cannot just see people broken all over beside me and not do anything. So that's how I initiated, like 10 years ago in Nicaragua, building companies where the same in the designing, because that's my passion. I'm third generation creator. My grandma, my mom, and then myself. And so I'm so passionate about creation and how God created us and how He gave us like the hands, the mind, the heart just to create and that wholeness. It's just like kind of like I feel completed at that, at that beautiful time, in that beautiful element of mine when I do all of these things. So I grew in between all that brokenness. So, and I'm not saying with that brokenness is totally eliminated. Brokenness is universal, right? It's every place. So, and we cannot get rid of it. But I think that kind of like it's kind of like incarnating myself and say I need to do something. God, what is it that you want me to do? And coming from an entrepreneur background, which my parents also are entrepreneurs in Nicaragua, I said like, oh, combining this beauty of creating a social impact, but also being being an entrepreneur and integrating both, and then bringing it with the gospel, which is the faith. What a beautiful and perfect and holistic combination would that be? So that is where I think my heart is, like growing up in a place where I grew up like what, like 20, 30 years of my life there, just being present every day and every day and every day. And sometimes I wanted to numb the situation and sometimes I wanted to. But when I went to Cambodia, it was like, oh God, it's like you call us up from Nicaragua and now you're taking us to Cambodia, where it's the same. They suffered, so many years of genocide, of historical brokenness, and and still people are like, accomplishing things for God and they have the heart for God. And so I felt like, oh, thank you, Lord, because you brought me to Cambodia to again. It was like a rebirth of my passion in the inside, saying, "You could do this, Anna. You are in a good track, in a perfect track. This is what I long for women and men who want to go into business, integrate the faith and the work, and show an impact, and show the impact, the social impact that we need as image bearers, as Christ followers." Yeah, I think that at the beginning I think when we travel and we change countries and move to different places, I think we encounter that little bit of a cultural shock. So at the beginning, it was like, okay, Jesus, why in the first place? Why did I come to Canada? But we came because we there was a need for us to come after a political unrest in 2018. So we were threatened by the political regime that is in the actual place in Nicaragua. So we were like in a way like against our voluntary, like we had to move. But I know it was Jesus, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit who ordains that, because we are His children, and wherever He takes us, it's because He allows it to happen. So um, that is what I feel is kind of like what I think caused us to come and be here. And going back to your question is like, how do I feel the business is that there's so many differences, because I think one thing that we do have here in Canada is peace. Well, many people complain that we don't have peace, but I will invite you to come to Cambodia. I will invite you to come to Africa. I will invite you to come to Mexico or to Nicaragua or to Bolivia or to Peru or to any of these countries where political upheaval is like present, oppression. Not only that, underemployment, poverty, corruption, many things, right? But also the welfare system or the medical system. We don't have a good, imposition in those places, nearly in Latin America, Africa, or Asia, in some parts of Asia that we have here in place in North America. So I think sometimes we are, I mean, we are in a privileged space here, believe it. We are in a super privileged space here. And when I come here, it's like I think we take a lot of things for granted, and we think everything is very easy, but in actuality it's not. So sometimes like that's why I truly believe that missions is so important, because missions is not about fixing a place, but jumping into what God is doing and understanding the cultural context of a country and saying, okay, Lord, why are you calling me to do here? It's not about me. It's not about coming and bringing the Western into Latin America or bringing the Western world into other countries, but it's about you, about your kingdom and what you're already doing with the people. So I think we don't need to come with the mindset of, I'm going to fix these people. I'm going to fix everything. But with the mindset that, what is the Lord inviting us to do? Holy Spirit, what are you inviting us? And be open to what the Lord is going to do there, right? And so I think, I don't know if I have answered your question, but in terms of like not coming as Westerners to wanting to fix everything, to bring money, to bring careers, to bring our knowledges, but to just be humbly in a place of saying, Lord, what are you inviting us now to do here? And how can I help expand your kingdom? And so I think that is the posture that we need to adopt as business entrepreneurs, as missionaries, as people of yeah, Christ-like. Did I answer your question, or I don't know if you want to go next? Yeah, I think you mentioned something which is really, really, really true, and I think that the call that we have. Um, but I also think that the most important thing is the gospel. And what is the gospel? I think the gospel throughout everything that Jesus talks about is love. So if we're being entrepreneurs and we are not inviting God into our businesses and to show love and to be good stewards of what He has given us, I think we're not truly loving and we're not truly making and doing what Jesus told us to do. So an opportunity for business entrepreneurs who are Christians and they have businesses is like to just, I invite them and ask themselves this question, to ask yourself this question: what am I doing to impact the proximity of my neighbors? What am I doing to impact those who work with me? Where am I, if we talk about supply chains, if we talk about traceability, I'm in a fashion industry. Where am I getting my leather from? Is it coming from a contaminated waters overseas? Where am I getting my fabric? Is it being picked up by kids who are in exploitation in India? All of this is valid because we are, I don't know if you heard about the triple bottom line concept, but the triple bottom line concept is like a social enterprise which talks about caring for the people, the planet, and caring also for the profit. When we talk about social enterprise, it's not only about, social enterprise also gives back to the community, and that is the difference between normal companies and social enterprises, that a social enterprise gives back almost 50% of its income or its profits back to impacting that community, right? And so how is the Lord inviting you today to say, okay, I have this business? For me, it's kind of like, it doesn't have meaning to have a business and not to be able to impact the society. And I think that's part of how God wired me in the inside. I have a lot of empathy for people. I'm very vulnerable. I want to put myself in other people's shoes. So the invitation would be, hey, entrepreneurs are out there. As Christ, are you really exemplifying this, what God told us? And there's so many ways that you could incorporate, even with your working force. What are we doing? Are we discipling them? Are we showing God's love to them? How are we treating them? Like many ways. Yeah. Worship. Yeah. What did you say? Worship? Well, I think like also wealth is, if you're wealthy, also God has given you the ability to build it. Because you know what, I think like everything, I think you agree with this, like we would agree, like everything comes from Him. And if we're walking in as His children and believers, He also has given you the ability, the talents, the capacity, the experience to build that wealth. I think it depends like on what are you using the wealth. And going back to being an image of Jesus as image bearers and Christ-like and love our neighbors, what are we doing with our wealth? Is it only going to you and making yourself rich and corrupted and selfish? Or are you giving back and helping and impacting that community? So and also coming to churches, I think churches now, through this integral mission movement and business as mission, is growing more into being present there and allowing entrepreneurs to be part of the church setting, allowing entrepreneurs to help more, because I mean, God gave us the ability to do business. Business is not evil. Business is a blessing. I mean, business like changes community, impacts community, gives employment to people, changes people, gives meaning to people because we have work. Imagine we are working with our hands, and that is bringing meaning to a life. It brings dignity back to the women, to the men who do not have employment. So this is part of that redemptive process of entrepreneurship, like redemptive. We are, I mean, in that cross, when he died, I mean, we're also called to have resurrection in our businesses, in our lives. So when we give employment, I mean, and women, for example, I'm going to say like women who are overcoming addiction, and when they come out of like the treatment after 12 months program, there's people like they don't, I mean, it's hard for them to find employment. But if you create employment for them, imagine how good could that be? How dignifying will this be? Right. So also we don't need to fall into stigma of saying, oh, she came out of she's a newcomer, or she just came to Canada, she doesn't know, or she just came from addiction. As Christ followers, I mean, we're called to walk alongside these people, walk alongside them, right? It could be us. It could be us, right? It could be us. And that's the way we show love. So I think sometimes we fall short of what God is inviting us to do. And sometimes because this takes more commitments for entrepreneurs, training programs, or involving people who do not know many things about what business is like. But I mean, why is it like we want to take everything so easy? No, I mean, you know, the one of the most beautiful things, they come out of like challenges and trials and sufferings and grievances. So yeah. Yeah, if we go back to the cross and we see the cross, there's a redemptive process that happened in us, right? When God gave his life for us as death, but then he resurrected. It's a new life. And so that is like his birth, his death, and his resurrection. So it's the same process that we can apply that to business. For example, as a designer and as like the fashion designer, I see how much, for example, how much fabric goes into the landfill. But I can create a business with a triple bottom line concept and saying, I'm going to be a good steward of the planet. So I want to create something. I want to create garments, but I'm not getting the fabric from somebody who, as I mentioned before, it's they're exploiting the kids and being picked, or they don't have a fair wage, like in Bangladesh, where, you know, if you heard about like that, like the building that fell and killed many women, and later they found out like they were in low wage and all of that. So I think that is part of what I'm saying. Like as entrepreneurs, we can come and we can say, okay, I'm not part of that. I'm not part of that. I'm going to find fabric, which is fair trade, which I can carry a certificate where if you have a barcode, for example, you can trace who picked that cotton? Who did I purchase the fabric from? Who are the employees in that factory? And I have a fair trade that actually says, okay, this is what it is. So that's what I'm referring to. I come into and I say, this is like kind of my entrepreneur passion because I'm passionate about fashion. And this is a way I can have a redemption or be redempted and go and work and to expand Jesus' kingdom and say, this is what I'm called to do. This is my passion, and this is what it's gonna be right. And I'm being a good steward of the planet, of the people. Yeah, kind of like yeah, and it's also like for sure, and it's also in construction. See, like Canada is it's very strong in timber and wood and construction. So many we have many constructions going on all over. If you see like well, at least here in Vancouver, I see a lot of going on. And so also in the construction I mean, just to call another segment, not just the fashion industry, what are we doing to bring redemption into the construction? Are we building constructions that are safe? How are we manufacturing in our plant processing the wood? Where are we getting the wood from? Also, what kind of buildings are we building? Is it green to the environment, sustainable? And do we have like affordable housing? That's the other thing, right? And so, and also innovation comes into place. Like, for example, we can use bamboo as a source of like, instead of using wood, which maybe takes longer and contaminates the environment, and we're deforesting many forests, like bamboo isn't something new that's coming into place. So, I mean, all of these things give us like ideas. How are we bringing redemption and being part of God's, redemptive work? And no, my son, he works in that area and that in with bamboo, so that's why I'm saying that. I mean, and he is for affordable housing and all of that. So this is what I know a little bit about that. Yeah, about that. Yeah. About business's mission, integrating your work, your faith. Well, we have a conference coming up, and that's Saturday, February 25th in Vancouver. I can share the link with you after. And so it's a conference, a whole day conference, and we have two great speakers who are going to be talking about business's mission and how to integrate. And so that's something that if you would want to come and to listen to. And also we have the business as mission movement here in Vancouver, but if we have it all over Canada as well, business as mission. That's part of like you can become member, listen, go to conferences. And we have other things like faith-driven entrepreneurs, and we have other things as a praxis. All of this is kind of like that, redemptive entrepreneurship that I'm talking about. And then we have tons of books. And actually, Regent College here in Vancouver, they have a master's, which is called Masters of Arts, Leadership, Society, and Theology, which is talks about the marketplace and the integration of faith. So that is so fascinating. It's beautiful. So I will invite you also to look into Regent if you want to dig deeper into what business as mission is, or the integration of faith and work. point to clear. Yeah. Yeah, I completed it, and then my graduation is May 8th. Yay! That's it. Yeah, thank you so much. It's a 2-year program. So it's called, well, it's a master in arts, and it's in theology, society, and leadership. So it's a fascinating program, which I had the interview 2 years ago, and I said, like, I wanted, like, for me it was like that calling. I want to know more about Jesus. I want to know more about the integration of the faith and work. I love entrepreneurship, but there's something in my heart that was not connecting totally. And so I said, like, I need something deeper. So I had the interview, I went there, and, well, yeah, you're welcome to come. And so I was the only person talking about, different cultures and Western world, Latin America. I was the only one from Latin America. In that cohort, we were 10. And so it was so inspiring. It was so beautiful and so transformative for me, and to learn more of what, theology is, to learn more about Jesus, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, to know more about the integration of the work in the faith, but also in the cultural sense, and the leadership. How are leaders built? How can we be called, as you mentioned earlier, servants? What is that? What does that really mean? And what does that really look into your heart? So there was a beautiful topic that I'm so fascinated about, is the integral mission movement. So that is where all this came about, and how is the business and the proclamation of Jesus, of the gospel, integrated. And I really loved that. I just, like, delved into those books, and the beautiful explanation is it's not only about proclaiming, but it's also about applying. It's also about the social component that we sometimes forget, that they go hand in hand. And when we learn the gospel, I think sometimes something that we miss is the application of it. And so we, as you're listening to this podcast, I also invite you. How are you being invited today to apply what we read daily in our gospel, what we read daily in our Bible? And for me, that is kind of bringing that wholeness of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and to be that image bearer of Jesus Christ, to loving our neighbors well. What does that really look like? And I think at the end of what summarizes being business as mission is that, how are we loving our neighbors? How are we loving our people? How are we loving God's creation? And a way that you can do it is through your businesses. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. Thank you. An honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to What in the World, where we seek to educate and inspire. Here at Hungry for Life, we are passionate about your group having a global impact in eradicating needless suffering. For more information, head over to our website at hungryforlife.org, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. Tune in every other week for another conversation about what is happening at Hungry for Life.